connection. We all wish to feel connected to someone, be it one person or a family or a community. Human connection is something that we all need. We all want to be seen and heard, but we don't always feel seen. We don't always feel heard. When we talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, these three are ingredients that we need to feel that we belong. We don't always feel like we belong because we are not always feeling united. We feel divided, and our division can be based on many factors. Be it language that we may not understand each other's languages, speak different languages. We have concepts in these languages that we do not share. Be it culture that may be different, how we interpret things, and things that we believe in, our point of references may be different. But within this diversity, we thrive to unite through an equitable way of being treated, being included. I would like to share a story from my childhood that taught me a lot about empathy. I was about 5 years old, 5 to 6 years old, and my elder brother and I were in our home with our parents. We were invited to a meal, and it's a family meal, just an ordinary family meal, where my parents and us would sit around the table. We lived in Helsinki, more specifically in Hakaniemi, although we are from Namibia. We came to the table expecting everything to be normal, but to our surprise, my seat was taken, and so was my brother's seat. We were very confused as children, and it didn't make sense. Our parents sat at the table, but they took our seats. And it didn't just end there. They were behaving the way we behaved. And one can always imagine how children behave at the dinner table, how we relate to food being given to us, and how we relate to parents being with us. And I think this is one lesson that taught me a lot about not only understanding the other person, but also stepping out of your own comfort zone, taking the place of another person, which is not always easy. Taking somebody else's place in different situations is very difficult. And this is made difficult by our relationship. Stepping out of your own space usually forces you to go to outside your comfort zone. And this is one of the requirements when it comes to empathy. When you practice empathy, you need to get out of your comfort zone and try and imagine yourself in another person's situation. This enables us to treat them a little bit differently. As parents, or as we have different roles. We can be parents, we can be teachers, we can be coaches, we can be bosses, managers, leaders. We can be people in different roles, and the more empathetically we lead, whether be it families, be it schools, be it workplaces, we're able to meet people from a different level, and we're able to create more productivity. I shared a story that I that taught me something about empathy. Because had my parents just spoken to us, which they actually did often, about how we behaved, I think we would have maybe listened, but we may not have taken the presence that we did when they took our seats. In many situations where our proximity to power, our privileges, and our abilities can blind us from seeing the other person, our own access to happiness that we often speak about can disable us from seeing the less happy people, the less privileged people, and the less powerful people that don't necessarily make the decisions that affect us all. But still, this shouldn't disable us. It's something that I find very useful in the work that I do. I have worked for the past 10 years in different organizations, and the key ingredient to empathy that I have been able to practice is peer support. I started with human connection. When we see, when we hear the other person, we're able to connect. And then one would ask, why is it important? Why is it important for us to see and hear other people? Why is it important for us to step out of our own comfort zone, our own circle of privilege, our own place of power, and just for a moment step into that less privileged area? It would give us more meaningful relationships with each other. Today we're speaking about diversity, equity, inclusion. We are diverse, but how much do we really mingle with people that are different from us? A few previous speakers gave us very profound exercises of looking at the person next to us. These exercises are important because often we are conditioned, we are socialized to click with the ones that look like us, with the ones that believe in the same things with us, and the ones that have something in common with us. But why don't we challenge ourselves to try and see the very person that looks very different from me, the person that believes in something different from what I believe in? Because when we do that, number one, we learn a new thing. Number two, we also we expand our own ability to encounter one another. When we practice empathy, we model it to the younger generations. Today's event was made possible by young people that are volunteering. What is our relationship to perhaps volunteering, to doing things that we're not comfortable with? Young people in Espoo volunteering, organizing an event within their community because they really want to give space to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Young persons inviting adult people, parents and adult people supporting them, but taking a step back, giving them the space to own this event. For me, that is profound, that is powerful, and I think it's one demonstration of how empathy leads, how empathy creates spaces where we encounter one another, where we see the things that we need to see for us to unite, be it in the topics that we talk about, be it in just encountering one another. I'll move to the next point of how do we do this. The first thing that I personally find important is being present in the moment, being present where you are with the people that are available around you. I come from a culture where when we meet one another, we greet one another and we ask how we are. It's a closed question, but I challenge us all to ask open questions, and not only ask these open questions, but also listening to the answer, not to answer the person, but just listening to the answer, because often the distance between two people is actually the story between them. When you tell me your story and I listen to it, and I tell you my story and you listen to it, we both go home richer. We know more about one another, and we're able to relate to more than just reading news about extreme cases. Another thing that I would recommend on how is checking in on emotions. Trying to identify our own emotions and trying to identify the other people's emotions. Instead of just looking at the actions, maybe something is cute. The sound is not working perfectly, but what exactly is the reason behind what's happening? Why is the person maybe late again? Have we had a conversation of how they are? The question, how are you, goes deeper than fine, thank you. What is the tone when they respond to how they are? What is the story that they're telling us? How were they last week and how are they today on that specific topic? I will go back to the beginning where I spoke about being heard and being seen. And I would like to conclude that we all have that need to be seen and to be heard. And when we speak to one another, when we encounter one another, instead of looking at people through our differences, we need to look at them, trying to find the similarities that we have, because there's a lot about the differences that we have that divides us. But when we encounter one another empathetically, looking at each other through where they are instead of where I stand, putting myself in another person's position, through that we're able to encounter them as they would encounter us if they did it as the way we. Let's encounter one another the way we wish to be encountered ourselves. Thank you.